So while I'm waiting on adhesives and stuff to dry for the Galaxy's interior, I thought I'd work on putting this lawnmower together enough to see if the engine runs and how good it runs and what I need to do before I clean everything up and paint it. So I'm just gonna, I got 3 wheels, I don't have 4, so we're just gonna put 3 on it. That'll do to, you know, just to make sure the engine runs. Yeah, this thing, I put the motor on and the blade. This thing has some killer compression. This is going to be a really good engine. That's got better compression than a lot of the side valve engines I've had. It's like a, feels like a new engine, like a new long block. So the little shield that goes under there is missing, so I'll have to make one or find one. But I'm going to check, see if it has spark, and then if it does, put some gas in it and have a go, see if it starts. But let's check the spark here. That's super oily, probably from being shipped. Let me see if this thing has spark. Now that plug's super oily. I did wipe it a little bit. I don't see any spark. Let me clean the plug up a little bit and see if it, or find a different one, see if that makes sense. Well, there's no spark. I just cleaned the plug and I'm not getting any spark, so we'll clean the points or replace them, whatever's necessary. I'm going to put some oil in the crankcase so I don't forget. These little engines take 20 ounces, so I got this OMC beaker for measuring 2 cycle oil, and I'm going to put in 20 ounces. This is 16 in this beaker. On Briggs & Stratton engines, the points are underneath the flywheel, so we'll get the flywheel off, get the blower housing off first. Let me get the fuel line off so I don't damage it. And then I'll clean all this up while it's off, maybe prime it. I'll take the fuel line off at the carburetor, that way I can clean make sure that's clean too. I'll run some lacquer thinner through it. Okay, we got the blower housing off. We'll shut off valve here. We have to put new packing. We'll have to check all that for leaks. It needs new packing. We'll put it in. Alright, let me, yeah, I really don't see any issues there. The inside of here is nice and clean. It's got the old style mag, the old style flywheel. These flywheels you can't run the magnetron on. If you want to run a magnetron, and you got to put the newer style flywheel on, otherwise it won't have spark. But yeah, the coil gap there looks good and everything. Alright, let me get the flywheel off. Now we're down to the points, and they look okay. They open and close. I'm going to clean them up and re-gap them. I think 20 thousandths is the correct gap. Doesn't say. Some of them say on there. But I'm pretty sure it's 20 thousandths, so I'm going to gap them at 20. Just sitting here running some 600 through the points. Those points are right on the money. I mean, that's perfect 20 thousandths. So I just put the flywheel back on finger tight, and like I say, all I did was clean the points. The gap was spot on. Let's see if we have spark now. Oh yeah, we got nice blue spark. Alright, so now I'm gonna I think what I'm going to do next is, this screen was hitting the shroud, and I don't think it's the correct one for this engine. So I'm going to put the, get it all fit properly so it doesn't rub on the shroud. I just set the cooling shroud on there, but I cut these off, made it a little smaller. These are what was way under here, and that was what was rubbing on the shroud. So when I cut these off, I was able to fold that down just slightly so it doesn't rub on the blower housing anymore. On Briggs & Stratton, they use this washer, and it's convexed, or it's, it's beveled up a little bit. And you can see it's got a crack in it. So this is not going to work, so I'm going to have to find a new one of these. I'm not even going to try and start it until I have a new one, because it may just cause the flywheel key to shear. And this is the incorrect nut for the crankshaft, so I'll find a nut in a new convex washer for it. In the meantime, I can just leave it on there just loosely. I'm not going to be starting it today or the next day or so, but we'll there we go. Show you one other thing that needs to be done. So this is a little bit broken out of there, so I'll weld a little piece in there and get that straightened up so the blower housing stays on nice and doesn't shake or rattle or anything. But yeah, I think this is going to make a nice mower. I think engine's got marvelous compression. I'm surprised at the amount of compression it has. But the governor, I think the spring is just too stiff for the governor, so I might look into getting another correct spring for the governor. It just seems to me like that's going to overspeed the engine seriously, so we'll get that taken care of in the meantime. Do a little cleaning here. I took the carburetor off because there was no little gasket on this. See how that goes? That can be a vacuum leak, cause an engine performance problem, and it doesn't look like there's a gasket between the carburetor and this manifold. And I want to take this and put a low-tone muffler on here. I want the mower up at the cottage to be quiet. I have a whole ton of these. It's 294441, and I just use them for when I do projects. I don't get rid of them usually. I just keep them for when I do projects. I may take that deflector off, but this will make the mower a lot quieter. And carburetor has to come off, put these ones on, but that will definitely make a difference in noise. And I think I'll leave it about like that. And then you just tap that with a hammer and a punch, and it maybe I'll leave that deflector on there, as it looks like the muffler exhaust would hit the tire and that'll blow it back. So maybe I'll leave that deflector there. But that's the muffler I'm going to use, because like I say, I want this mower quiet. Make sure it clears it'll clear the carburetor and the fuel line. And this is, maybe this spring doesn't need replaced. This is a throttle. So, yeah, it does move that. So, we'll just leave that spring on there for now. I think it'll work fine. And this is the little piece of linkage for the governor, and the manifold gasket and the carburetor bolt. So I got to find a few. There's part of that gasket that probably would have been on that bolt, but I'll find got to find a washer and a nut, a couple gaskets. I'm going to take this carburetor apart and clean it. I may have carb kits for these, but we'll go through and make sure, as I want it to run good before I clean it all up, degrease it, and paint it. I'll paint the engine gloss black, this crinkle red, and all these yellow, like it originally was, is the way I'll paint it. Get the float bowl off these. Take your needle valve and this high-speed thing out, and then take a skinny little regular screwdriver and unscrew the metering rod. If you don't, you'll never get the float bowl off. And this is dirty, so it does need a good cleaning. It's not to where the engine wouldn't run. Well, maybe that that end's plugged. But let me get the float off and we'll see what the bowl looks like. Well, I don't know what I recorded here or not. I noticed I pushed the wrong button, but the inside of that is really clean, other than a little drop of oil where I oiled the threads for where this main jet was threaded through. And the float, see, it's got a little bit of a dent in it, but it doesn't feel like it has fuel in it. We'll get a new needle and seat coming for it. We'll just get a whole carburetor kit for it. And this gasket was on here, but it's the incorrect one. So we'll get the correct one and get everything squared away on here and get this little thing running. There's the mower all together. I know it's missing a wheel. I'll hunt up a wheel, and I need an axle for it too, the little axle bolt. And I just want to get it running first, and then I'll go through, take it all apart, clean everything out, and paint it up nice. But I want to just make sure it runs perfect first. And the best research I can do, I've done a little research on the internet. I've had other people tell me, 805 Road King even told me, he's one of these Briggs small engine guys, and that this is a 1957. And I have a 1955 also. So if you're new to my channel or new to this is the 55. My grandfather bought that brand new, and I'm going to totally restore it back to like new also, along with that 57. Note how those handle brackets are green. Some of these mowers did come in green. I think the older ones, I'm not sure, I'd have to Google it again, but they may have been off a different mower, or maybe they had green ones left over and they threw them on the red mower. The handles are yellow, these things are black, these are yellow. Now these are green, and they're green on both my mowers, so maybe these were green. I don't know, it's a bunch of colors, black, yellow, green, red. But if that's the way it was, I think these are originally supposed to be the same color as the deck though, so that's probably what I'll paint them. Little oil leak right here dripping out of the bottom of the breather, so I've put a new gasket on that. I don't think that's loose. I think it just needs a gasket. I was looking at it, doesn't even look like it has a gasket. Took this breather apart, cleaned the filter, cleaned all this. Got all that. There was a gasket on it. I'm just going to put some sealer on it. Put the little filter back in, and this just pushes together. That I'm going to put at the top, this top. So we'll get that back on, new with the little sealer. Normally I don't use sealer on these because if you look real closely, there's a hole in the gasket there, and that's where the breather drains oil back out when oil gets in this, into there. And then there's a drain at the bottom on these vertical shaft engines to make sure the oil goes back into the sump, and I'm going to make sure that's clear, and I don't think it is. So I'm going to get that cleared out. So I think this is a horizontal shaft block. I don't know, maybe with a, no, it's not, because it doesn't have the base here, but it definitely is a replacement block, and it's in really good shape too. Yeah, I got a wire shoved through that little drain. It was definitely plugged. It had like a bit of aluminum flashing, casting flashing in it. So that'll drain back into the sump now. That's probably why that was leaking oil more than anything, was this breather was probably just filling up with oil because it couldn't drain back into the sump. Well, that'll also cause the engine to smoke. So, alright, let me see if I can show you that little hole in there. Does it show up? And then the big one up there is where the crankcase breathes it. So you run your crankcase on a vacuum. So this is like a one-way check valve. It lets it air out when the piston's coming down, and it closes when the piston's going up. Literally keeps the crankcase under a little bit of a vacuum. I don't know if I stated this or not, but I peened these back out too. Those were kind of bent in. so it pulls the whole breather up against the engine a little better. I let the carburetor parts soak overnight in this stuff. This is the best cleaning stuff I've ever found for carbon and gum and goo and nastiness. That carburetor looked pretty clean. Look at that. So that just gives you an idea how well this stuff works. Now I'm going to go and do a final clean through of everything with this, blow some compressed air, and then it's ready to put together with a new kit. And I'm not going to video that because I don't want to get that spray on my camera while I'm spraying everything out. These carburetor parts cleaned up really nice. The only black you see on it is remnants of the original black paint from when it was originally painted. This is the most important part. There's little tiny holes there and there. If these aren't totally clean, these engines just don't run good. There's whole air, a couple air, and it goes through. It's the main jet, that's high-end, low-speed fuel. So literally, that goes up into the carburetor right somewhere. I think it goes in. It goes through this body, comes out there. It goes angular through the venturi. This is the venturi, and then into this right there. There we go. And that feeds this idle circuit. So yeah, so it's important that this component is clean because that's high speed through these and low speed through the, through the tube completely up to the low speed jet. So that's why you always got to take this out before you separate these bowls so you don't damage any of that. So that is ready for a carb kit. I got the carburetor kit, and this is the replacement. It comes with a new one of these, but the original one looks better. I like the way the holes, see how they're a little beveled, and this one they're just straight cut if they show up. But anyway, I'm going to use the original one, not the replacement one. There's no packing for the main needle, so I gotta get the packing for that. Nothing for that. That's the low speed, the high speed. This gasket came with it. Came with this gasket. The original one is kind of thin, and I'm thinking I'm going to put the original one back on because that's really thick. I don't know. So we'll see. But I gotta find a seal for there too. It didn't come with a gasket for that or the packing for the main. That's the gasket on the original. But I have a whole drawer full of little carburetor parts, and I'm going to go through and find a packing and a washer. Well, I didn't show putting the carburetor together because there's millions of videos on YouTube on how to rebuild those little Briggs carbs. They're super simple. Anyway, I threw it together. I found a bit of used packing. If it leaks, I'll have to get a new packing, but we're going to put some gas in it anyway and just see if it runs. I still got to get the washer, proper washer for the flywheel and stuff. I put a little gas in it. I don't see anything leaking anywhere. And put the choke on. I think I need to give it a little throttle. I don't think idle's enough. Alright, I gotta turn the adjustment screw and I gotta get something. we got it running pretty darn good. The throttle shaft that's kind of worn out, but it runs fine for what I'm going to use it for. Just giving it a little gas at the governor. I did order a new governor. That's probably about how fast I'll run it to do all my mowing. Looks pretty good. I don't see any gas leaks. We'll look it over for oil leaks over the next day or two. And if all looks good, it'll be ready to take apart and start painting up. Like I say, I got to get the correct nut and washer for the flywheel and weld the blower housing. But that's no big deal. I got to take it apart to bead blast the blower housing, and I'll fix it then. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video on this step of the mower, just getting it running. So if you like the video, definitely hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to my channel, hit that 348 engine icon there. And thank you for watching my videos.